Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Dynasty Fantasy Football Central podcast. I'm Michael Moore. He's Jonathan Scott. Say hello, Jonathan.
Hey, people.
Tonight, I think we're going to do some Dynasty buy lows and sell highs according to our very own Dynasty Fantasy Football Central rankings, which can be found at dynastyfantasyfootballcentral.com. Jonathan, I think we'll look at each offensive position this evening, and we'll start with the ever-important quarterback. And you had three guys because two was not enough. So why don't you kick us off?
Well, I mean, we'll see how it goes. But there's one. Like, I initially looked at the ranking, and maybe it's just me and not seeing enough of them playing. But knowing what I know about regression stats, Nick Foles at number 6 is kind of offensive to me. So let's start with the 27-2 interception ratio, despite having one of the highest hit-pass ratios in the league last year, okay? So for those that don't really follow or care about advanced stats that much in football, and it's just starting because it's such a team sport, it's hard to get your hands on it, let's just say really quick, these two things you need to know, that a 27-2 TD interception ratio is entirely unsustainable. It's never going to happen ever again, and if it does, Nick Foles ain't the guy to do it. The other thing is his hit-pass ratio was one of the highest in the league last year, and still only resulted in one interception out of all tip passes in the league. That's not going to happen again. I will say he's in a quarterback-friendly offense. They got rid of his best receiver, and he does have to take the time. I don't know that he can or if he can't, but he's going to have to take the time to break in a new receiver in Jordan Matthews, who I think they assume is going to be their number one. But this is a guy who people think he's young. He's 25. I mean, that's young-ish. There are still other younger quarterbacks I'd rather have than him. For example, Matthew Stafford's been in the league for 6 years. He's 26. So he's young, sure, but just because he's a second-year starter doesn't mean the future has 15 years ahead of him. So having him at 6, man, maybe I'm way off base on that, but he's ranked between Breeze and Peyton Manning. Like, I got to think I would rather have 2 years of Peyton Manning than 10 years of Nick Foles.
Yeah, I think for me, well, yeah, and everything you said about his stats is true. There's no way he can replicate that kind of efficiency at all. And is he in a good offense? Yeah, but I wouldn't necessarily call it a pass-oriented offense either. I mean, I think they rely on a lot of stuff like speed and obviously precision passing, but at the same time, yeah, it's not like it's in a Matthew Stafford or New Orleans type or Lions type offense where they're just going to chuck it all the time. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think 6 overall is probably a little crazy. I mean, I think that's probably ahead of guys like Kaepernick and Wilson and stuff like that, right?
It is, and I guess it should vary. There are different ways to be a quarterback-friendly offense. The reason this offense to me is quarterback-friendly is because, and I should also say it's skill position dependent. He doesn't throw the ball downfield that much, and he's not going to. There's going to be a lot of bubble screens, a lot of things short to intermediate. His receivers are going to do a lot of the work. But at the same time, there's going to be a lot of 3- and 5-step drops, no 7-step drops, and the ball will come out quicker, and he's not going to get hit. So, like, I don't think he's going to get hurt because I don't think the offense will allow that, but he's really dependent on these receivers that are entirely unproven. And yeah, he's ranked ahead of Matt Ryan, who, by the way, is only 29. Like a 3.5-year difference, and Matt Ryan has Julio Jones, Roddy White, and Devontae Freeman, Steven Jackson, etc. If someone offers you for Nick Foles and you get a franchise-making deal, you do it and don't even think twice. Just move on, because he's just not worth that in my eyes.
Yeah, and I think we can play a little game of who would you rather tonight, and yeah, I'd probably take Ryan. I'd take Ryan over Foles all day. All day.
Yeah, so let's just machine gun it real quick. Not just the next 5. All right, so Peyton Manning's out of it. So Matt Ryan, would you rather have him or Nick Foles?
Matt Ryan.
Robert.
Matt Ryan. Ooh, probably Foles.
Okay. Russell Wilson.
Probably Wilson.
Kaepernick.
Oh, Kaepernick.
Romo. And then we're at Brady.
And I'd probably take Brady, but I'm a Brady homer, so that's not really fair. But
right? My thing to dynasty owners is when you have a young guy who maybe you don't have the faith in, age, it seems like, especially with skill positions and quarterbacks especially, gets overvalued when ranking these quarterbacks. and we'll see this going forward a little bit as we get to these rankings, but if you have, if you can get 2 or 3 years of elite play out of a Romo or a Brady for a bunch of number ones and pieces for Foles, man, do it every day. Every day.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. So, all right, who's next on your hit list?
Well, I'm just going to do 2 real quick, so for the sake of equality, I guess. But to the point of everyone loves Nick Foles because of how efficient he is and how much the people around him do. But this is funny how the narrative changes because this guy lost his job. But Alex Smith, who is ranked number 30 on our list, behind Derek Carr, who isn't going to play and may not be good, Carson Palmer, Jake Locker, Geno Smith, and E.J. Manuel. Like, again, age being rated over someone who is a proven at least 3,500 yard, 25 TD guy. Like, the knock on Smith is he doesn't throw picks because he doesn't take risks. Everything is short and intermediate. He's dependent on his skill position players and who's around him. Yet there's a 25 position delta between him and Nick Foles for the exact same thing. I mean, Alex Smith isn't even 30 yet. He's only 29. So he's still got 5 to 6 years of what I would say QB2 level play. And the offense is getting better, and they're getting more skill position players around him. Travis Kelce, I think, is going to have a big year for them, and they still have Jamal Charles, Dwayne Bowe. I don't understand why he would be 30th below those people. I mean, for Christ's sake, Jake Locker and Geno Smith. Holy hell.
Yeah, I think with a guy like Smith, my concern is where's he going to be next year? Because he's not one of those guys that I think NFL teams go, yeah, he's our guy. Like, we're going to win a Super Bowl with that guy. I think he's very, very close to that age where a team's going to bring him on to, like, mentor another young guy. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying he should take that deal. He should hold out as long as he can. But it concerns me that, it just seems like, and it's not any fault of his own, but it just doesn't seem like any team, we're on team 2 now, wants to commit long term to him.
So I would say that's a fair criticism. I would say 2 things to look here and to look at when you're dealing with an Alex Smith situation. Well, ironically, you brought up the point about he's going to be a mentor because a young kid needs to be mentored. They've already done that with Geno Smith. He's 1 year in the league, and they've already decided he needs a mentor. So that's another thing entirely. But he's only 29. He's at a coaching staff that seems to at least have some faith in him and trust in him to run the offense. He did put up 40-something points in a playoff game last year, so he's trustworthy there. They have no backup in place, and you can shout all the backups you want to be the Tyler Braves of the world in Kansas City. None of them are NFL quarterbacks. And they're going to play well enough next year where they're not going to be in a position to draft somebody in the first round that can play right away. So they've kind of boxed themselves in a little bit when it comes to Alex Smith. He's going to have to play there next year, I think. And if you hear about the contract negotiations starting to heat up a little bit where he may sign something in the Dalton range kind of thing, and he'll be there for 3 to 4 years, and I think that's the end game here, to be honest. I don't think they can afford to let him walk because there's no built-in situation behind him. So that's a fair situation. That's a fair criticism that you don't know where he'll be, because if he doesn't get that contract and they walk, man,
it's anyone's where he goes. Right, that's the thing. It's anyone's guess where he goes and what kind of system he goes into. So.
But here's the point I would say. Who has better odds of not being a starting quarterback next year? Geno Smith or Alex Smith?
I think Alex Smith has a better shot at starting, if that's the question.
That's the question.
Okay. Yeah, I would say Alex Smith then.
And that's kind of my thing. If I look at Geno Smith, Jake Locker, Carr, obviously, Palmer, even E.J. Manuel, man. Like, I like E.J. Manuel, but his footwork is atrocious at times. Like, I think Alex Smith has the best chance of starting in the league next year versus all of these guys. So I know that's a little bit of a short-term view.
I can see that.
If he's starting next year, that means he's also starting a few years later too. So.
Yeah, I can see that. All right, so you had 3 guys. Which one? What's the third guy?
Well, we kind of covered it after going over the Foles thing, but basically that tier of Wilson, Kaepernick, and Romo, actually, to be honest. But I zoned in on Kaepernick just because I own him. But if you want to buy low on it, and I know it's going to seem hard to buy low on Kaepernick, but he's the one guy in that top 11 scenario that actually improved their weapons across the board in the offense in the offseason. Carlos Hyde, I think, is going to be a stud and actually will be better than Frank Gore. Stevie Johnson is a big-time difference maker in that offense. Having Michael Crabtree there for an entire season also is a big-time difference maker in that offense. And he still has the best coach in football in Jim Harbaugh, at least offensively anyway, I think. So I don't know, depending on the league, I think there's a chance of him, and I would, because there's going to be top 5 to top 7 numbers from him this year, and I don't think he's bad that way.
Yeah, I probably agree.
A little bit, because he's still in rankings. I would switch them by the end of the year, probably.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I wouldn't go that far, personally. I love Stafford. I don't.
Do you?
Look at behind me. So, I think Stafford's going to be good for a long time. So, yeah, it's just I wouldn't take Stafford over Kaepernick, but I see what you're saying. I think Kaepernick is going to be a QB1, a low end probably for a long time. I just don't see him ever in an offense where they're just going to chuck it. You know what I mean?
I think you'll start to see that transition this year.
And that may be. I think they'll pass more. I agree with you. But as far as, like, you know, are they going to be a pass-first offense? That I don't know. And I can't fathom that under the Harbaugh era. I really can't.
I would say the key with the Niners and looking at that isn't necessarily looking at who their skill players are, but look at the offensive line turnover over the next couple of years when they lose Alex Boone, which is going to happen now, when Uapati doesn't re-sign and they got to replace him. And the guards they've drafted, the Brandon Thomases of the world, Adam Snyder, who they've had for a while, who's not good, but those aren't mauling, run-blocking guards they have there. And then you already have Staley, who's one of the best pass-blocking left tackles in the league. And Anthony Davis, who's better as a pass pro than run block, in my opinion, personally. That line is starting to shape up to being more of a pass pro offensive line. So that's where I'm kind of intrigued by that. It kind of looks like they're built. They always build from the inside out. That's what they do. But the way they're building, it kind of seems like they're building towards that.
Okay. Well, that's possible. That's very possible. All right. So I think that covered your rank, or the guys you wanted to talk about for sure.
Yeah, I feel selfish. Like, I'm hogging everything. You have to have an opinion, right? Like I can't be the only one freaking out.
No, I'm about to get there. Yeah, so here's my two guys, okay? And this is going to be a true hot sports take. So get ready. I don't understand Andrew Luck and why he's ranked that high. Like, I know he's good. I have no doubt. Okay, and he's going to be a very good NFL quarterback. But for fantasy dynasty purposes, I don't see it. I mean, and look, you could say he's been hamstrung by his offensive coordinator or, a crappy running game or whatever. But the bottom line is, it's not like the Mannings and the Breezes of the world had everything handed to him either, or even the Staffords of the world when he's going off for 5,000 yards. So I guess I don't see it yet with Luck. And the one thing that could change all that is if they do switch either, coaches or offensive coordinators or something, and they truly go pass first. But until they do that, I would much rather have a lot of the guys behind him than Luck. Is that crazy?
Man, geez. So you know what's funny is that there's a debate of reality versus fantasy, obviously, and I'm actually on your side. I thought there was no one else on earth that had the same opinion I did. I think he's incredibly overrated, to be honest, because it's so
at least from a fantasy perspective.
Yes.
He's above average. I will grant you that. But is he elite? Is he is there even a question on him or Aaron Rodgers? To me, no, not at all.
No, not at all. The thing with Andrew Luck is when it happens, it's going to happen, and it's going to happen quickly, and it's going to happen in a big way. But like you talked about, like people make excuses for him of, oh, well, it's the coaching staff and it's they want to run the ball and the offensive coordinator's not great. That's all true, and guess what? Those are all also unavoidable. Like those equate into the equation for Andrew Luck. They're not going to let him chuck it around 55 times a game. Partly because the defense isn't good enough to hold up, to be honest. Another part of it is the DNA of that coaching staff won't allow it. So I'd say the skill position players are kind of overrated there too, to be honest. But it's neither here nor there. Andrew Luck in reality has masked over the fact that he has taken what should have been a rebuilding team to the playoffs 2 years in a row. The skill positions and even in the trenches in that team are awful. Oh, they're so bad. But he's so good in reality in making the right play, getting to the right checks, and he's just so good at doing what's necessary on a play-to-play basis to eliminate the factors of losing. And I know that sounds like such a cliche, but it just doesn't show up in fantasy. So I'm with you. I would take a lot of the people we talked about over him, probably stopping at like RG3 or something like that.
Well, yeah, and people got to remember, I mean, for many years, Peyton Manning had pretty much the same supporting type cast, right? It's not like the Colts had a bunch of great guys in the trenches then either.
No.
So people forget Peyton Manning had to play at truly an elite level, like elite, to get where he got, which was, yeah, they made the playoffs a lot. They went to 2 Super Bowls with him, and they won 1. When if they had a better supporting cast, they probably could have won more, right? And people, I think, forget that, look, it's a lot to replace possibly the greatest quarterback of all time. I have no problem calling Peyton Manning the greatest at that position probably ever. I mean, is that fair?
We just gained like 5 more viewers at a protest in the New England area. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, okay. Look, as far as skill and like stats and all that,
Sure.
I would take Manning.
Arguable.
Right. So, when they let him go and they drafted Luck, I think there was just a lot of undue pressure on Luck to sort of be Peyton Manning. And I think some people probably gave him the benefit of the doubt that that's just how he was going to be. But he's not. I mean, he's a good quarterback. He's a very good quarterback. But, look, until they just turn the whole offense over to him and they just say, screw it, just pass it 50 times a game, I don't see it. So, I'm with you. I think there's 5 guys behind him that I would much rather have.
Totally fair.
So, okay, so that was hot sports take number 1. I'm going to go to hot sports take number 2, and a guy that I think is vastly underrated and has been underrated his entire career. I'll give you one guess. And this is from a fantasy and real life perspective.
I don't know. Knowing you, I would guess Roethlisberger.
No, I think he's also underrated, but that's not who I was thinking about.
Then I do not know.
Come on, one more guess.
Tony Romo?
Yes.
There it is. Okay.
Yes.
That was my second. Obviously, my second guess.
It is criminal how much people hate him and think he's bad. I mean, especially for us, we live in Texas, so we have to hear it all the time. But It just amazes me how many people would rather have Romo, whether they're a Cowboys fan or he's on their fantasy team. And they don't realize how good he has been.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't get it. I mean, look, I'm going to pull up his stats, and I'm telling you, they're going to.
So, look, while you're
so we have him right now. Hold on, we have right now as 12th, which means he would be like your last, pretty much quarterback 1, right?
Yeah.
So last year he threw for almost 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns. The year before, almost 5,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. The year before that, 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. I mean, I don't know what I'm missing here with him. I would love to have him on my team, fantasy or otherwise.
No, listen. You're barking up the right tree on this one. As someone who's analytically driven and believes in advanced metrics, Tony Romo to me has been one of the top 7 or 8 quarterbacks in the league for quite a long time. If you would have told me this a year ago, I would have said you're absolutely right. Now I need to see, and this is kind of weird to say I need to see a preseason game or 2 in a dynasty league when it comes to a quarterback, but do we know anything about that back, man?
No.
So, all right.
And look, don't get me wrong. It's entirely fair to have that still out there, right? I agree with that. But, just some of the guys we talked about on the low end of that, I mean, I would take Romo over RG3 in a Dynasty League, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but I think we both hate RG3.
Okay, so let's see who else is about there. So
I'd take him over Russell Wilson.
I would too. Kaepernick was getting kind of close, but so look, that puts him in the top 10.
I would agree. I would say that's fair. I'd even probably take him over Matt Ryan, to be honest, because Matt Ryan, once you took his weapons away, with Tony Romo, it kind of seems like he can kind of do it with anyone. Like he had, one year his best receiver was Miles Austin, who was okay, but he wasn't great, and he still put up, like you said, almost 5,000 yards and 30 touchdowns. So
it just boggles my mind how low people are on him, and I gotta believe that would extend it to dynasty leagues if they, and that look, there's a lot of good quarterbacks in that range, that sort of low end quarterback 1, high end quarterback 2. So look, if you're in a 2-quarterback dynasty league and Romo's like your second quarterback, okay, like I will take that all day.
Oh, absolutely, especially if you can get away with having a younger quarterback who is going to play like a Dalton, for example, or a Tannehill, and you can use them as make weight to upgrade to Romo. I would absolutely do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah,
the risk is worth it there, because if he is healthy, like if the back is good and everything's fine, he can play for 3 or 4 more years, I think, because as much as he relies on mobility.
Look, with quarterbacks now, he's 34.
Yeah.
Look, you've got Peyton Manning at 37. You've got Drew Brees, who's up there too. I mean, they're all playing till they're 40. That's a given.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, and yeah, I think it's amazing how narrative, like, there are very few teams still that can carry a national narrative and no one really challenges it, and the Cowboys are one of them, right? And it's because the owner has stayed the same for so many years. They've actually been really good at establishing a national brand, but they didn't know how to control that national brand. It was just, hey, we're national and we're the Cowboys, and then, hey, ESPN, ABC, local media, NBC, you do with it whatever you want to.
Right.
And it's gotten twisted. And it's unfortunate because Romo's the one that, I shouldn't say unfortunate, he's loaded and he makes a ton of money and he's happy. But when you're in that position for the Cowboys, you're the one that's going to bear the brunt of that. So that's what's happened here. Sure. No one talks about Demarco Murray and the fact that he can't stay in the field, or that Miles Austin hamstring exploded 2 years ago, or the fact that the defense is going to be historically bad this year. Like, it's not going to be mentioned. So it is what it is.
And people need to remember, we're getting to almost a decade now of having Tony Romo entrenched as your starter.
Yeah.
That there hasn't been a quarterback controversy on, hey, Quincy Carter's our quarterback, or hey, we signed Drew Henson or whatever. I mean, I remember those days. You know, I mean, they take it for granted that they don't have to worry about that position, barring an injury.
The neck beard known as Kyle Orton is still the best. I love that man.
Well, he's gone and retired now. So.
Where do you think Kyle Orton ranks in this list? Go.
Not available.
Yeah,
so.
I know.
Anyway, okay, so we're gonna move on positions, I think, to running back, and let's look at a guy that I'm. To me, the jury's still out on this guy, and that would probably be Zac Stacy.
Oh, you took mine.
Yeah, so we have him ranked 11th. Came off a solid year last year as a rookie.
Really? Did he? Did he have a solid year last year?
Yeah, it was towards the end. Yeah, he did.
Okay, you go on.
Look, I'm getting there. Okay.
Okay.
So, yeah, so he's the starter in St. Louis. It was sort of, I don't want to say it was like a war of attrition with the running backs there, but it kind of was, because they brought in like 3 or 4 different guys. Had right at 1,000 yards. I think that's probably where his value. People saw his value, and look, he's a young guy. This is his second year. For me, though, there's a couple red flags, right? Meaning, I'm thinking he's ranked too high. I don't want you to misconstrue what I'm saying. I think 11 is probably too high for him. But, he averaged less than 4 yards a carry.
Yep.
People got to remember that. He was a volume guy. So, and volume guys can be replaced like at, the flick of a switch. So, furthermore, they drafted Trey Mason in the 3rd round. I mean, Trey Mason is not is not like a 7th round project. I mean, he's pretty good. So, yeah, I think 11th is probably a little high for Stacy, and if you can get something that equates to that in a trade, I would probably do that.
I wouldn't even say it's a little high. I think it's ridiculous.
Okay.
Name me the last fantasy star besides Steven Jackson that has played for the St. Louis Rams. And I've got all the time in the world.
Well, I think you probably got to go back to the Greatest Show on Turf days.
Cool.
Which
so
was probably close to a decade. Yeah, I was going to say it's close to a decade now.
Yeah. So I don't know, like, what are we projecting for Zac Stacy other than the fact that he's exactly what we thought he was out of college? Lacked initial burst and acceleration, ran a 4.7 in the combine, can run over people, and that's cool, but like, not only that, but he's got the death knell of playing with a quarterback who's not going to help him out. He's not great out of the backfield, in my opinion, personally. And he plays for Brian Schottenheimer, who I don't understand why he still has a job in the league. Sorry.
His name's Schottenheimer?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, that's why he's still got it.
This is the other thing that drives me insane. So do you remember wanting the draft 2 years ago, what the most sure thing was in the draft out of the top 15 picks?
Trent Richardson?
No. I'm talking like the NFL draft. Sorry, I should have specified.
Trent Richardson?
Oh. Okay, so, well, that's true too. But so it was basically just popular opinion that no matter where Tavon Austin goes,
Ooh.
he doesn't have to learn the playbook. Just throw him out there, just have him do exactly what he did before, and he'll make a contribution. Brian Schottenheimer found a way to take the most guaranteed person in the draft and turn him into a just meddled muss of confusion. And then he runs it like. So, in summation, honestly, to me, Zac Stacy is nothing more than a younger version of Chris Ivory, who just happens to be a little shorter and wider shoulders. And I've seen nothing to.
And to your point, who was the offensive coordinator for the Jets for a couple of years that sort of used 2 running back system?
Yeah. Yep.
Brian Schottenheimer. So yep. I get where you're going with that. And look, I'm with you. I think Stacy's a guy that's probably way overrated. Certainly. I would not be comfortable if he were my first running back in a dynasty league. Certainly not in a PPR league. That would scare me.
I wouldn't be comfortable with him as one of my starting 2 running backs, to be honest.
Interesting. Wow.
But I honestly think what last year was the pinnacle of what he's going to be.
Sure.
Because
I get that.
People are going to come in and take. If you're a volume running back and they're bringing in draft people and they're bringing in people in the 3rd round to come take your volume. It's not good. And oh, by the way, you can't really catch passes out of the backfield, so you're not doing that role either. It's only a matter of time. So I also don't predict a lot of good things for that St. Louis team this year. I think that situation could get blown up quickly. So, sorry, Rams fans. Your defense is going to be awesome, though.
Well, it's really too bad because it seems like it's been every year now that we keep saying the Rams are taking the next step.
Yeah, I know.
Right? It's like, no, this is the year. And then it's like, no, this is the year. And, yeah, you're right. They've got good players on that team. They really do. But, no, I'm with you. I think I think they're good at every position but the skill position. The positions, the quarterback.
I was going to say.
The running back, even the receivers. I'm not sold on. Look, I'm a Kenny Britt fan, but
I was just going to say.
Well, and it's not like I would rely on him if I'm an actual team to be my number 1 guy. He's a head case. Who knows when he's going to completely fall off a cliff? So, yeah, I think, look, the line's good on both sides. Their linebackers are great. Secondary is good. It's just, yeah, everything leading up to that point scares me.
Fair. All right, so that was probably a little bit too much time that we'd ever want to spend on Zac Stacy, but since we both had him on our list.
It was important.
It's fair. We both had him on a list, so look, when 2 experts have it, it's got to be true, right?
Yeah. Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll go next. A guy I think is low, and I'm probably going to get eviscerated for this, but I'm a Toby Gerhart fan. I make no bones about it. So we have him 30th. Look, I think he's got that starter's job for a couple years, probably. In sort of probably the Michael Turner type role back in the Atlanta days where they build up everything around him, and they just rely on him to just pound it for 20, 25 times a game. And I think he's going to do that for a while. Like, you and I are both fans of Jacksonville as an ascending team. I mean, at different levels, I think. But I think we both agree the arrow's pointing up there. And look, I think Gerhart is in line for a lot of work there. I don't see anyone threatening him for his job. I don't see an offensive shift that's going to take him out of the game. So, look, if he were my second running back, low-end second running back heading into a dynasty season, I think I'd be okay with that.
Where do we have him ranked?
30th, I told you.
I wasn't listening. I was looking something up on the computer. Sorry.
Fair enough. He's 30th.
At least I'm honest.
So right now, he's your third running back. He would be a third running back.
Yeah, I would have. So this is not me. So I want to clarify for the 7 fans we have. This is not me saying that Toby Gerhart is good or that I'm a fan of him. Okay. This is me saying that if he was your second running back, I would be comfortable with that because, like you said, they're going to force feed him the ball a lot, mostly out of necessity, but also because I think this offense can develop some semblance of balance if I'm right about Lewis having a little bit of a bounce back year and Marquise Lee being the best receiver in the history of football. So if they have a little bit of balance, and you hear about the running game opening up opportunities for the passing game, I think this is a situation where it may be the opposite, where the passing game will give Toby Gerhart a chance to find some open holes in between. I worry that they try to use him like a new style running back, where they try to get him on sweeps and outside the tackles. Like, they need to just stick with between the tackles. If you run around counters between the tackles, that's fine. It's going to be old school. It's going to be ugly, but that's where I think he's going to really thrive. And I think he's probably better with his hands than some people realize. Like, he can catch probably 30 to 40 balls this year out of the backfield if they use him that way. He's not a bad athlete at all. So if he were to come back with like 1,000 yards and 6 or 7 TDs rushing this year and like an extra 20 with like 200 or 300 receiving, I wouldn't be entirely shocked. And that puts you square in the running back 2 category. So I'd want to kill you for this, but it's really hard. I don't know that there's a future for him. They could draft somebody next year and he'd be gone because there's very little money dedicated to him at all. But it's a decent deal.
Well, and I think that's an important point. But for me, I think he produces that kind of line for 2 or 3 years. I really do. I think they're gonna look at other positions to sort of fill in first, especially on defense. I mean, they're very thin on defense right now. And I think that's probably where they start building through the draft the next couple of years. And look, if he could get his 4.5 yards a carry, they're not going to worry about it. That's going to be the last thing they try to address. I mean, they have a lot of holes on that team, a lot of holes.
They got a few.
And look, I don't see them using certainly a high pick on a running back, but yeah, I think he'll probably be there for a while, if I had to guess.
That's fair.
So, all right, you're up.
Yeah, so sort of the same realm where it's a guy who is getting a second chance on his own team, but is younger, and a team I'm buying into entirely is Lamar Miller on the Dolphins. And sort of the same sort of realm. They've got him. We have him at rank 27. And I think by the end of the year, he ends up being a solid running back, too. This is more me buying into the offense and buying into the idea that Mike Sherman's kind of an idiot. So, yeah, kind of. I mean, it's not... When I say a coach is an idiot, I guess I should really say that they're inflexible. Mike Sherman made it a point to put square pegs in round holes last year. Because he's a coach and he has a huge ego, he says he can do this, and that's fine. But you had Ryan Tannehill, who all advanced in standard metrics tell you is a top 3 quarterback outside the pocket in the league, and you do nothing but keep him in the pocket and get him killed. And so they go to this different offense with Bill Lazor, I think is the name of the offensive coordinator. I should be more prepared, but I apologize, I'm not. But they go to this high-tempo, up-tempo offense that will get Tannehill moving a little bit, quicker decisions. Not only that, but if they go higher tempo and a faster offense, no Sean Marino's not going to fit in here. And I know you're going to tell me, well, he did it in Denver, and that's fine. I get that.
I'm not going to tell you that.
Well, okay, so maybe not then. Because I think he was in Denver and fit there just because he had no choice. Monte Ball fumbled 1 or 2 too many times, and he didn't trust him in the beginning, and there was no one else there. This time, there's someone else there, and it's Lamar Miller. I think he's going to be the guy that thrives in this offense. He's going to find a hole, hit it, and go, and he's going to be fast out of the backfield, especially on passing downs. So I could see him taking that full-time role by week 3 or week 4, if not sooner, and just taking it and running. Again, this was a physical specimen. This is a guy out of the draft that everyone said he's going to do well. But then Sherman kind of Shermaned, and you saw what happened last year. So.
Yeah, this may be one of the. I think this may be one of the ones we disagree on. Quite honestly, I don't see it with him. I think he's, look, and I agree with you. He's a physical specimen. I get that, but I just I haven't seen it yet for me. I mean, and he's been given opportunity. I mean, it's not like he was playing behind some studs the last 2 years. He had every chance. He just didn't bust through. And they signed Moreno, which, given, it was not a big money deal or a long-term deal, so it's not like they're invested in Moreno a whole lot. But I don't know, man. I don't see. And I know they have designs for him. It's lining up to be a good situation. I just don't think he's got it. I really don't. I mean, we jump on Stacy for only averaging 4 yards a carry. Miller did too last year after averaging 5 in his rookie year. So, I just don't. I mean, do I think there's value there because he is going to be the starter and the offense I think is going to be a little more open? Yeah, from that perspective. But is he a guy I'm targeting in Dynasty for the long term? I'm not personally. So I think third running back, because he's 27th on our rankings, I believe. I think that's probably a little high, but if he's your third running back this year, I think that's right where he should be.
So I think there's two situations that make the difference between what you mentioned, like Zac Stacy or someone like that. There are two specific differences. One, there is no one in my mind behind Lamar Miller to take this job away. Like, again, you can shout no Sean Moreno to the top of the top.
And I agree with that. I agree with that.
And the other thing here is that he's proven at least in a diminished capacity his rookie year that he can do it. It's not hard for him to do it. He has 50-yard runs on his resume, long plays, and it's a new offense, right? Like, the offense last year for Zac Stacy was built and designed exactly for what he does well. And he still averaged 3.9 yards a carry. Lamar Miller was in an offense that was designed exactly for the things he's not good at all. And still averaged 4 yards a carry. So if you put someone into their worst situation possible and they're still better than someone else's better situation possible, I mean, I can't. To me, that's not comparable. Like, if I had a chance to trade Zac Stacy for Lamar Miller straight up, I would do it in a heartbeat. I would take Lamar Miller. No questions asked.
Interesting.
And a lot of that, again, has to do with a competent coaching scenario. Wouldn't it be great?
Yeah. All right. Well, let's play that game then. I'm going to go down the list. Hold on.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to go up the list since you're a fan of Miller. Okay.
All right. Let's go.
So Miller or Bernard Pierce?
Miller. I'll take the starter over the backup every day of the week.
Pierce is starting the first 2 weeks.
That's fine.
Miller or Reggie Bush?
Oh, man. I will still take Miller here.
Okay. Miller or Kristen Michael?
Oh, Miller, by far.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Miller or Hyde?
Probably. Well, what's funny is, I would probably take Hyde over Miller, but I would take Miller over Ray Rice, who was above him on the list.
Interesting.
I think Ray Rice is done. Like, done.
I think Ray Rice probably needs to go away. So
for a while.
Yeah. All right. I think, like I said, I don't think we're too far off from each other. I think third running back is ideal for a guy like Miller, personally. Until I can see more and he can prove that he's the man and he's getting 1,200 yards and all that. For me, I would play it safe with him personally. But.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I believe in that situation. I also believe it's an easy division to run on too.
Sure.
And I think that once he does get the ball out, they're going to give it to him quite a bit.
Sure.
So, and you'll know quickly in the first 3 or 4 weeks, but I think it'd be a cheap upgrade, especially if you're missing at running back. Like, if you don't even have a second running back, which would be my case, Hello, Stephen Ridley. That's somebody I should look at to probably, see which one of them busts out, and I think it'll be Miller.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. All right, so we're going to go on to receivers now, and I believe you are up.
You want me to be positive or negative here?
It just somebody you see that shouldn't be in the spot they're in.
I have a positive and I have a negative.
Okay.
Which would you rather me be right now?
We'll hear the bad news first.
All right. So the bad news is Randall Cobb is overrated.
That's probably good news for a lot of people though.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm a big Randall Cobb fan to be honest, but I'm starting to sort of see where the injury may have been a little worse than people let on, to be honest. And not only that, but they're drafting receivers in the second round. He's a smaller guy. And I don't mean smaller height-wise. I mean smaller as far as just absolute build. And the way we've got him ranked at number 9 right now, that is a legit, no-question, number 1 starter for your receiver. And that's a little bit shaky for me because the people behind him, like Marshall, Antonio Brown, even Cordarrelle Patterson, who I think is kind of a question mark, are all people that I would take over Cobb right now because I know the ball's going to them, and I know they're going to get the chances to make big plays. With Randall Cobb, he's more of a matchup buster or a zone buster, sort of like Percy Harvin, right? People got so excited about Percy Harvin because when the matchup is right, man, he looks really good. But when the matchup's not right, that's not great. And I don't think the number 1 receivers in reality or in fantasy are those kind of receivers. So I love him, though. He's so much fun to watch. I do like him. He's just not number 1 good.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think he's one of those guys, and I think Harvin's a good comparison where, look, he could get you 50 points a game, right?
He will win you a game 1 week. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But he could also have a real dud. And, those kind of guys have more duds than those really big games. And, look, he's a very good weapon in that offense, but you can't convince me that Aaron Rodgers doesn't go to Jordy Nelson more than he goes to Randall Cobb.
Fair.
I would rather have Jordy Nelson than Randall Cobb, just because I know that there's a game plan with Nelson, and I know he has a role. It's on the outside. He goes deep. He catches touchdowns. That's what he does. And I would take that all day over a guy like Cobb. And don't get me wrong, I get the appeal of Cobb because it's like we said, he could catch for 200 yards in a game. Yeah. Great. But the next game he's going to catch 1 ball for 8 yards, right? And that's it. So, yeah, I'm with you. And given, we should probably clarify, these rankings are an amalgamation of other people's rankings. So, I just don't get people's fascination with Cobb. I mean, unless you're just looking at ceiling only, then I don't get it.
Well, eye of the beholder. I will say with someone like Nelson, there's almost a 6-year difference in age there. Those are close enough to where I say, okay, well maybe I buy into the extra 6 years of service time with Cobb and hope he either explodes in this offense or goes to a better situation. But for the next 2 to 3 years, especially with Nelson signing his extension, knowing where he's going to be with Aaron Rodgers, which is a huge boon to him, that doesn't bother me at all. Because if Cobb goes somewhere from here to New England, then awesome. But if he goes from here to somewhere and just goes for a money grab, like in, for example, St. Louis, well, all of a sudden you have a huge issue.
He's going to be very average. That's what he's going to be. And let's not forget they drafted Devontae Adams pretty high too.
Yep.
And look, they've got a lot of high-priced guys on that team that they're going to have to pay. I mean, they already re-signed Rodgers. They're going to have to re-sign guys like Lacy at some point. I just don't see it. I don't see it. So I think we're in agreement. Cobb. Look, if Cobb's your second receiver, low-end second receiver, I'm okay with that. But if you can get wide receiver 1 kind of haul in a trade for Cobb, I would do it all day.
Correct.
So I would do it right now.
Yep.
So, all right, who's next on your hit parade?
Oh man, someone that looks just like Randall Cobb, only he's 15 times better.
Wow, that's a big exponent.
I know. Well, it's rough math. Okay. But Brandon Cooks, man. So.
Oh Lord, here we go.
Well, so here's the thing, right? So let me ask you. Just this is based on the list. I'm not saying he's a wide receiver 1 or anything. But if I ask you Brandon Cooks or Steve Smith, who do you want?
Well, Cooks.
Brandon Cooks or Hopkins?
Ooh. I'd probably go Hopkins, personally.
Your argument is invalid. All right, fine. I can't fight that, I guess. But the people I see directly above Cooks...
We could argue that. I can do that all day.
I mean, the Hopkins thing... Again, you talk about situation. Ryan freaking Fitzpatrick is throwing him the football, and he's going to be replaced halfway through the year by Tom Savage.
That's
Good
right.
luck.
Fine. No. And look, I understand that. But if we look at last year with the dump that the Texans quarterbacks were last year, okay, between Case Keenum and T.J. Yates and Matt Schaub, this is all DeAndre Hopkins did behind Andre Johnson as a rookie. 50 catches for 800 yards.
Yeah.
That was a rookie year with horrible quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Yeah, I get that.
Okay. So for me, I think Hopkins has more of a look of a number 1 guy than Cooks. And that's not to say Cooks isn't good. Cooks is going to get his. Okay, he really is. But we've talked about this before. He's a high floor guy for me, but a low ceiling guy. Meaning, I don't think he's ever going to be the number 1 option in that offense ever.
Brandon Cooks?
Yeah.
Don't think he has to be. So
that's fine. But he's also, I don't think, ever going to get anywhere close to wide receiver 1 numbers. I think he's going to be a very, very good wide receiver 2 for your fantasy team. But I don't think he's going to be a guy where I go, yeah, that's my number 1 guy, and I'm good with that. I don't see that happening.
He'll get pretty close. I don't know that he'll ever be a wide receiver 1. But again, that's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is we have him ranked as a wide receiver 3 going into this year, and if he's your 2, I think you're entirely comfortable with that because this is a guy who puts up huge plays, has great hands, caught 140 balls in college in 1 year, and is already someone that Drew Brees has openly said, I trust this guy to run any route that's in our offense already. And you know Drew Brees is going to be there for 4 to 5 years. Jimmy Graham's not going anywhere. The Sean Payton coaching experience is not going anywhere. So he is in such a friendly environment. And Marquise Colston will be going somewhere soon, I think. But even if he does, imagine Darren Sproles on steroids without the burden of running the football. That's what you're looking at here. And Darren Sproles in his first year in New Orleans, without the burden of running the football, was an 8-catch, 80 to 90-yard game guaranteed every week. Only that, this guy's more explosive and bigger. So if he's your number, I would take Cooks right now over Matthews, Smith, Hopkins, Wright, Fitzgerald, every day right now. Those are the people ranked ahead of him.
And I think it's a question on, what his value is. I might even agree with you that 30th might be low for him. I might agree with you there, but I just don't think he is that much higher than that. And I don't think he ever will be, personally.
Well, what's ironic is, and it's fun with math, we have the 3 rankings combined for an average, right? And he's averaged 26. His rankings are 22, 22, and then 35. So the 35 kind of skews a little bit. So I think most websites understand he's between 20 and 22, and that's kind of what I'm saying here. He's a guy that I would target because you're only going to have one chance to buy low on him, and it's going to be now.
Right. Sure, I get that. And I think he's good. Look, I think he's going to be a very good player. I just don't. He won't be a wide receiver 1 for me, and I think some of the other guys around him, I think they have that ability. Quite honestly. But,
that's fair. You also love tall people, and I love
just in general. Just in general.
So for the record, people, my favorite receiver possibly in the last 20 years is Steve Smith. I love that man. So I am predisposed to people.
Formerly of the Panthers, right? Not the Giants.
Yeah, not the Giants. The Giants version was a tragedy. But people that are built and act and have the temperament of Steve Smith, which Cooks kind of does, and has the explosion. I guess I'm kind of projecting my own hopes onto him a little bit too. But oh man, he's gonna be fun. All right, sorry, I'm done. That was my rant. This will be fun because you and I view receivers totally different. What are your two people going to bring my way?
Okay, first, a guy that I think is ranked too low, and this sort of ties back to who I covered at quarterback.
Mhm.
I like Terrance Williams. I think he deserves to be higher than 30. Let's go. Let's go. I'm ready. Let's go.
No, go ahead. Finish your thought on Terrence Williams.
Okay, so as we've discussed before, before Dez, we'll call it BD in Dallas, they sort of just trotted guys out to catch the ball. Miles Austin, Laurent Robinson. I mean, name some other. Roy Williams had his time.
Cole Beasley. Cole Beasley.
He's still there.
I know.
Still there.
I know.
To me, Terrance Williams, just by himself, talent-wise, is better than any other guy they've had there to play that sort of second banana role. And I truly think that he's going to take advantage of that because, look, that position by definition is going to have some leftovers, right, from that offense. They just are. They brought in Linehan, who, if you thought Dallas passed a lot last year, like, get ready because they're probably going to pass it even more. So, to me, I think Terrance Williams probably as your second receiver might be a little generous, but if he's a high third receiver for your team, I'm okay with that.
All right, so I guess that's where I'm glad I let you finish, just because, like, I kind of assumed you were saying Terrance Williams, second receiver, roll with it, and I would just be like, no.
No. It's sort of like what you just said with Cooks. I'm not saying he's a number one by any means, but I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity there, and I think he's going to be in that spot for a couple years. So.
All right, so Terrance Williams, there are certain people that you look to. There's two different kinds of buying low in fantasy, okay? There's a buy low that you want to keep. There's a buy low that you think, all right, this guy is good for 5 to 7 years. And then there's other buy lows that are essentially flipping property. And stick with me on this a little bit. Terrance Williams, I think, is someone that you buy low, let him explode in an offense this year where the defense is going to be historically awful and they're going to be passing so much that he's going to look superficially good. And then
look, I agree. I'm not saying if you dropped him into Tennessee, he'd be anything special. But in that offense, if you can keep that job as second receiver, I think you're in line for a lot of production and probably a huge payday at some point.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me just because of if he could pull. God, I'm gonna show my age. If he pulled a Drew Bennett from 04,
nice.
That wouldn't shock me at all. Where he just goes nuts for 6 or 7 games. His stats look awesome. All of a sudden, you have this young physical specimen at receiver who's only 25 going to next year in a high-powered offense, and you flip him for another need on your team, knowing you can find a Terrance Williams somewhere else. That I'm okay with. I'm not advising anyone to go out and get Terrance Williams and roll with him and think you're good for the next 5 to 7 years at one of your starting wide receiver spots, because I don't think he's that guy.
No, I think a good comparison, a real-life comparison, is probably Eric Decker, right? Where, look, he's...
Eric Decker minus Peyton Manning, sure.
Well, no, that's my point. Eric Decker lived out this exact scenario you just described. He was in an artificial system that inflated his numbers. He wasn't he's not an elite talent, but he's good enough to keep that job. And look, he cashed in. He's got a big payday now, and good for him.
Yeah.
But, just because you drop him into New York and make him the number one guy doesn't mean he's going to produce nearly the same. And I think that's probably the road Terrance Williams is going. And look, I agree with you. If you could squeeze 2 or 3 good years out of him and then pawn him off, great. And I think mission accomplished.
1 year.
Fine. 1 year, in your flex spot, I think that's okay. I really do. So.
That's fine. All right, go ahead. I was maybe a little bit harsh with my head and my hands. Go on.
No. It's look. We need some drama on this, so it's all good.
I provide it.
No, I hear you. Let's see. For me, and I'm going to try to be positive here. I don't know. I'm going to try to be positive here.
You don't have to. You could be a dick.
Yeah, okay.
Way more fun.
I know, and I think we covered this before, but Tavon Austin at 34, I don't understand.
Thank you.
I don't. Yeah, I don't. And look, I will fully cop to the fact that going into draft last year, I thought he was going to be awesome. I mean, I think we all did.
Yeah.
But I think in hindsight, look, in true hindsight, that draft class last year was abysmal compared to the one, say, this year and probably next year too, right? So you can't force it, meaning, oh, if a guy was drafted 8th overall in the actual draft, that doesn't automatically mean, oh, he's going to be a stud. He's not. Because look who was drafted at 7th this year, Mike Evans. And I think if you compared those two, it wouldn't even be close. So, yeah, for me, having Austin as like your third receiver, like, I don't understand it. I just look, and we've talked. It's kind of funny. We've talked about like the Cobbs and the Harvins, and like how people value them so highly, and that's what they brought Austin in for. But he's even worse than those two guys, right? Which we don't have highly ranked anyway. So, yeah, for 34th, I'm about done. I would trade him for whatever scrap you could get.
So look, this goes back again, and we're Niners fans, so we followed the NFC West maybe a little closer than we probably should. But the value of that is that I know a lot about Brian Schottenheimer and the things he said and the things he's done. Good coaches don't take a strength from a player and take it away and tell him to get better everywhere else, right? That's not what good coaches do. And Brian Schottenheimer has talked openly about how confused Tavon Austin was. He's not running the right route. His depth on routes is a little bit off. He's trying to sort of figure it out. It's all a bit too fast for him. Like the fastest player in the draft, and somehow the game is too fast for him. That's a failure on your end. There's no reason, from an athletic standpoint, that Tavon Austin shouldn't be contributing in some form or fashion. They're just not. But they try to turn him into this Wes Welker clone, and that's not what he is. He's not smart enough. I shouldn't say smart enough. That sounds awful. He's not experienced enough because of the offense he came out of West Virginia. I wasn't taught from day one of how to read defenses, how to decide correctly on option routes, where to sit down, and where to find a soft spot in the defense. And for the record, Kellen Clemens wasn't helping last year, but Sam Bradford isn't going to either. I don't want Sam Bradford running option routes within the middle of the field either. So you're trying to fit this guy into a role that he's not built for. He needs to be getting bubble screens, drags across the field, 9 routes, and that's really about it. Be a little more creative in how you get him the ball with people around you. Don't just tell him, hey, you're going to work short and intermediate. You're going to have 7 different routes to choose from in the route tree in the 10 to 15-yard space. You figure it out. It's irresponsible the way they've handled him. I want no part of him until that coaching staff is gone or he's traded somewhere else. He's young enough to where if he goes somewhere else and used correctly, I can maybe buy into him having a good future somewhere as a wide receiver 3. But until then, man, I want no part of it. None. I'm with you.
Yeah, no, I don't even know how low I would go to want to trade for Tavon Austin. It would be like, I mean, it would just be really low. It'd just be really low. So, anyway, I think we're in agreement then.
Yeah, like on my team, I'm thinking about on my roster, like I might trade Hakeem Nicks for him, maybe. But Hakeem Nicks is running on the non-starter part of camp for the Colts, so that should tell you how I feel about Tavon Austin. Like, not just run away. Sorry if you have him. He's exciting, and I like the kid. I hope he does well, but there's just nothing to show that he will.
Yeah, and all the things you said, I think, are the reason why. It's the coaching staff, and just look, he didn't show me anything last year. It's not like he had a game. I mean, he had, I think, one decent game, but let's face it, most of his yards were on a return.
I was going to say, he had a good game where a lot of it was one big play on a missed tackle, and then it was on, like, special teams and punt returns.
Right. It was against Indy. I remember that. But, just like we talked about, if personally, I think you and I are not fans of the Cobbs and Harvins of the world, and Tavon Austin is not even as good as those guys. So, Yeah, he's way off the
It
list.
just depends on the situation, man. And trust me when I say St. Louis is not the situation at all. So it
That's
felt like a eulogy. I feel bad now. Cheer me up. Tell me something good about tight ends. I don't want to deal with this malaise anymore.
uh, yeah, I know. Well, look, you were the one that said it was fun being a dick. I was trying not to.
Yeah, it was like
Trying
it's
not
fun to
to,
be a dick, but you brought up the one situation where it's like, oh, I wish he was better. So
Well, I don't know what to tell you. So, but we'll do our best. Okay,
yeah.
we'll do our best. Okay, actually, you know what? This will cheer you up. And we are moving on to tight ends. Travis Kelce at 20. Go.
Whoa! Thanks, buddy.
I'm teeing it up for you, so now you got to knock it out. Go.
Thanks. So,
And try to contain your giddiness, because it's visible that you cannot. So.
oh man, so Travis Kelce seems like a ton of fun right now, right? So I just traded for him in our Dynasty League, and I think I got a pretty good deal out of it, just trading a draft pick for him. This guy is an explosive tight end who can make big plays. Evidence, I say this with a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek, but the dude has a 70-yard touchdown in preseason. Alex Smith loves his tight ends for one, so he's going to be developed. He's going to be used because Alex Smith can't throw the ball further than 30 yards. And the other tight end, they're playing this off right now that Anthony Fasano is still going to be the starter. I call bullshit on that. Anthony Fasano is still in the league because he was from Notre Dame and can block. Those two things, and that's it. Travis Kelce is arguably the only downfield threat they have in that offense that's reliable, which is kind of saying something from a tight end. He's an athletic freak. Even after microsurgery, the guy is an athletic freak. And I think Andy Reid will do enough. I would take it back to about 4 or 5 years ago when Brent Selleck first came in the scene. Imagine a more athletic Brent Selleck and how Andy Reid used him throughout the offense. And that's what I see for Travis Kelce going forward. I think this is a great opportunity to buy low on him. He could end up as a low-end tight end 1 by the end of the year, and you could probably get him now for a mid-round draft pick and just reap the rewards going forward. Am I off? I feel like that's pretty balanced considering I own him. Am I off base on this?
No. Look, you and I talked about this before. I told you it was a good buy. People forget that he was very well reviewed last year, going into last season. I mean, it was pretty much Eifert, Ertz, and him, right? Yep. And he had the microfracture surgery. He was out the whole season, and it kind of worked out to his advantage, meaning as far as from a fantasy perspective, because you had this big class of tight ends this year, rookie tight ends, that people sort of forgot about him and pushed him way down the list.
Yep.
Right? I mean, I think in our rankings, all 3 rookie tight ends are ahead of him at this point, which I think, with the exception of Ebron, I think is crazy.
Yeah.
Personally.
Totally agree.
And I'm with you. He's the most talented tight end on that roster by far. He's probably going to end up as the high-end, the second receiving target there after Jamal Charles. And yeah, you make a very good point. Alex Smith, let's face it, doesn't have the best arm in the world, so he goes tight end a lot. Yep. That's how him and Vernon Davis made their money. So, I'm with you. I think 20 is ridiculously low. I mean, looking at the other guys there, you've got ahead of him Fleener, Dwayne Allen, Amaro, Bennett. All of those guys I would have Kelce in front of.
Yep.
All day. It starts getting close for me with Safarian Jenkins, Olsen, and Pitta, only because I know Olsen and Pitta have done it before, and Safarian Jenkins, I think, is on par talent-wise. So, but yeah, I'm with you. I think if you're in a 2 tight end league or flex league that has tight ends and Kelce's your second, I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yep. Totally agree. And
was that good enough for you? Was that enough good news for you?
I may need to roll over and light a cigarette. You may have to take the next person on your own for 3 or 4 minutes. I love Kelce. He's so great.
I know. And you'll be getting the jersey here any day now. So
maybe. We'll see.
I know. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to bring you back down to earth, I think.
All right.
I don't. Well, and sort of the same things you just said with Kelce as far as opportunity goes and all that, I think is true of this next guy, but it hurts him. And for me, that's Eifert from Cincinnati. at 9. I think he's good. I don't understand him still being ranked as highly, personally. And look, given, I shouldn't say that because it could change this year with old Hugh Jackson running the show, but I can't imagine a whole lot of room to grow there, right? You've still got A.J. Green. You've got Marvin Jones now, who they rightly are making him a starter, even though he's going to miss the first 4 games or so. You've got Bernard out of the backfield. You've still got Gresham there as an inline guy. What am I missing here? It just doesn't seem like the opportunities there like it is for other guys like an Olsen or a Pitta or a Witten or an even Kelce.
So I think the only argument I have here, and we disagree a little bit on this, is the talent as far as a tight end is like a top 3 or top 5 tight end in the league for me. The talent is kind of insane. He is an elite athlete with amazing hands. Good. You don't have to bring him off the field because he has good blocking ability. There is a bit of an issue with mouths to feed here, and there's also a bit of an issue in like Andy Dalton. So let's just elephant in the room. And the issue is Andy Dalton, right? When Andy Dalton gets in trouble, like it comes off the wheels and it comes off fast. Everyone talks about a tight end being the best friend of a quarterback. When things get in trouble, you just go to the tight end. Andy Dalton doesn't do that. He just throws it up for grabs for A.J. Green or just goes down. His numbers against pressure in the NFL last year was some of the historically worst numbers of any quarterback in the league. And until that improves, and the only way it's going to improve is recognizing where your targets are in the middle of the field and knowing where your good targets are in the middle of the field, which I think are Gio Bernard and Tyler Eifert. And if he can recognize and make the adjustment to hot routes with Eifert and getting to him when pressure is coming, I think there's a chance for a huge uptick there, but you're putting a lot of faith into Andy Dalton that I don't have. So for Eifert, it's kind of sad again for me because I think he would be somebody that I think could be a top 5 tight end. I think he's awesome physically. Everything you want out of a modern premier tight end. But that situation may hold him back. Grisham's not a thing to me. Grisham is a failed first-rounder who they signed to be an inline blocking guy. I'll be surprised if he catches more than 15 or 20 balls this year, to be honest. Marvin Jones, again, to me, to be honest, he's just kind of a guy. He had one game that skewed his entire stats for the entire year. He's fine. He's whatever. Same thing with Mohamed Sanu. He's a guy. So I think this offense is looking for a solid, if not great, third option behind Bernard and A.J. Green. I just don't know that the quarterback is diverse enough to actually create that. Neither is the offensive coordinator, by the way. I don't know that Hugh Jackson is that creative either.
Okay. All right, so let's play Who Would You Rather real quick, because that's always a fun game.
Yeah, this is way safer than when we play it off podcast, but go ahead.
True. So he's 9th now, so let's go up the list. Eifert or Ladarius Green?
I would take Eifert. The Green thing shocks me, but I would take Eifert.
Okay. Eifert or Vernon Davis?
Man, so I would probably take Eifert because I think Vernon Davis. Oh, look, man, he's 30 years old, and I think it's kind of an older 30 than most people are willing to talk about.
Right.
So
let's talk about 30.
There's different levels of 30. He's a bit of an older 30.
So let's keep going then. Eifert or Ebron?
I would take Ebron.
Okay. So he's about right where he should be under your scenario.
In my eyes, yeah. If you don't like a situation, I understand why you would do that. I get it.
Okay. All right. So I had my 2, so now your 2.
Well, we'll start with the one guy that you could actually replace Eifert with, and that's Zach Ertz. So I went back and a couple weeks ago I watched some of the film from like the Oregon games of years past, and watching how, and I also read a few things about Chip Kelly. He doesn't do many interviews, but he does do these really basic interviews talking about how he wants to attack offenses, and his main goal in his offense is to attack the linebackers on passing downs. Not really the secondary per se, but making the linebackers move into space, okay? And Zach Ertz is that guy, with Sean Jackson gone especially. Zach Ertz is the guy that's going to attack the linebackers at second level of a defense on every play. And they're going to move him around so much, and they're going to use him in so many different ways that he's going to be not only a lot of fun to watch pre-snap and post-snap, but I think he's going to get a lot of attention because I don't think Nick Foles is great. And I think he's someone that does look in the middle of the field for his tight ends and intermediate routes. He does understand that safety blanket issue because you don't have that high of a tip rate in the NFL unless you're short, which he's not, or you go across the middle of the field a lot, which he does. And it's going to be a little bit more of a compressed field vertically, but I think Chip Kelly's okay with that. He's going to look to stretch the field horizontally, which sounds weird, but that's what he does. And he's going to spread linebackers out. He's going to have a chance to have Zach Ertz one-on-one in the middle of the field all day. And this guy is going to take huge advantage of that. I can see him finishing as a top 5 tight end in the league this year, especially looking at someone like Jordan Cameron, who I don't trust that situation, Jordan Reed, who I need to prove he can stay healthy, for one, B, his quarterback can stay healthy, and C, his coach can prove to me he knows how to use a tight end correctly. Because for as much shit as we give, I heard a second ago about not being used correctly, his old coach is a new one in Washington, who didn't use him correctly there either.
Sure.
And the rest of them, you see their flaws. So I could see Ertz taking a huge leap up. The problem is that a lot of media outlets and a lot of people are saying the same thing right now, so you may not get a good price on him if you try to target him in trade talks. But I still think this is a really low-risk trade if you make it, and he's good to pay off at the end.
Yeah, I don't have an argument with any of that. I think he's going to be really good. I think eventually he could develop into, Nick Foles' #1 target, quite honestly.
Yep.
And yeah, like you said, they're going to spread the field around, and that's their point. They want to stretch that defense out. And look, when you do that, that opens up the middle, and a guy like Eifert can take advantage of it. So, no, I'm with you there. There's not much more to add. So.
Also, now that Sean Lee has gone down and he plays in the NFC East, there aren't really any great coverage linebackers in the NFC East at all. Like, they don't really exist.
Look, any offense in the NFC East is good there.
Yeah, okay. we've kind of made that a theme throughout those last 2 months.
Yeah, believe me, I would love to have like anyone in the NFC East on my team. It's going to be like a free for all.
So funny you should mention that because I have a segue. NFC offensive tight end, you should trade the second you get a chance to, is Jason Witten. And
wait, trade for or trade away?
Trade away.
Really?
Yeah, so you can probably look around me and see the orange walls and the Tennessee stuff in the background and know that this kind of hurts my heart a little bit. But there comes a point with tight ends where they only have so much name brand equity built into what they do, and when it's gone, it's gone. And with Witten, I think you're at that point where you can still cash in like he's a #1 tight end, but I think you may not be able to see that #1 tight end production anymore, especially with Dez Bryant establishing himself as one of the top receivers in the NFL. If we're right about Terrance Williams, he's going to get better. If I'm right about DeMarco Murray, they're going to run the ball more. He's going to be more effective. It's not that Jason Witten is going to be a bad football player per se, but like we talked about, the receiving options for the Cowboys in the past, it may seem like they're great because Romo's thrown for a ton of yards, but they haven't really been. Like Miles Austin's got yards, but you never worried about rolling coverage his way or telling a defense we have to beat this guy today. And that guy was also always, it was always Romo, really. Like, you cut the head off the snake. And now you have a legit one in Dez Bryant who is going to draw the attention. You have deep play receivers in Terrance Williams who can take the top off defenses and create big plays. I kind of worry that Jason Witten, his targets are going to go down. I think if they do run the ball more, he's going to be in there more to block because he's still one of the top 2 or 3 blocking tight ends in the league. And so it really isn't so much that his skills are diminished to the point where you got to get rid of him, but people are superficial about numbers, and when they see the targets go down and everything go down, you're going to lose value just because people don't want to go deeper than that. So if you sell high on him now, when he had a bunch of targets last year and he still looked good, or just wait until he plays the Giants 1 week and trade him after that, but like, this is the time to do it, because I still think you can get a high draft pick for him. After this year, I don't know that you can. Oh, that hurts. It hurts so much.
I'm conflicted a lot like you. Looking at where he's ranked, we have him 12th.
Yes.
Okay, so if you were starting a Dynasty starter league right now, he would be like you low-end starting tight end.
Yeah.
And I think, God, his production is just so consistent, though, man. I mean,
Sure. Yeah, but I'm telling you to cash in on that now. Like that.
Well, and the only. Well, no.
One.
Right. No, and I would probably agree with you because all the guys ahead of him are guys we talked about just now that we're really high on.
Yeah.
Right. The Ertzes, the Eiferts. Well, you're high on Eifert, so
Higher.
So, and all those guys are like 22, 23, whatever, and you've got Witten who's 32. So, I agree with you. I think there's still a couple years left. I just think some of the other guys ahead of him can do the same thing for longer.
Agree. And that's the issue here.
I really don't think his production's going to drop off a bit. I mean, it did last year already, right? So he had 73 catches last year when, in the previous, like 10 seasons or 5 seasons, he had no less than 79 before that, right?
Yeah.
So, and look, his yards per catch is still, I mean, it's consistent. It was 11.7 last year. It's 11.1 for his career. He had 8 touchdowns. That's the second most touchdowns he's had in his career. So I still think there's value there, personally. I don't think it lasts as long as a guy like Eifert or Ertz.
Well,
so for me, I think for me, though, I wouldn't put myself in the sell category yet for Witt, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, so what's funny is all the things you just mentioned are the reasons I'm saying sell now, because the production is still there, the yards per catch is still there. All the numbers that seem to lead to him still being productive are there. What I'm saying is the projection going forward is I don't know that those numbers will always be there, especially almost immediately.
No, they're not. They're not. It's gonna drop eventually. I mean, I don't have numbers in front of me, but I got to believe the age for a tight end, to peak is either already past this point or not. But
correct.
Yeah. So.
I mean, it's just you said you're talking about a former Tennessee Vol who was born in Knoxville. It's not easy for me to say, but the other thing is here, like if Romo goes, huh?
He was born in Knoxville.
Born in Knoxville.
Wow, good for him. All right.
True in-state hero. But if Romo goes down, do we still think that production stays the same also? We're talking about a gimpy quarterback who I know we said is underrated and go get him, but there is the issue of if it happens, ugh. So,
I think they still produce there. I think they pass it enough. And look, here's another aspect of it. Dallas is going to be bad, right? As a team, they're going to be bad.
You think so? Yeah.
Their defense is going to be bad,
yes.
Which means most likely they're going to be behind and they're going to be losing and they're going to have to come from behind. That's why the offense was almost prolific last year, is because they were always losing, so they always had to pass it.
Yep.
So, and I don't see that changing this year. I really don't. So, yeah, I think that offense, at least right now, is probably quarterback proof. I really do.
That's fair. And that would be the one counter that makes sense to me, is that the offense is going to still be good this year, out of necessity. But I would be looking, if you can get a second or better for him, or a like for like at a different position that you need, I would probably jump all over it, to be honest.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement there. So, all right. Well, Jonathan, we covered a lot of ground tonight. Any other parting words, or maybe some other player you want to sneak in real quick?
No, can I just say real quick that the gamut of emotion that I ran tonight, I don't like this whole judging people over and over again. It's
that's what fantasy football is. So
we ended on killing a hero of mine, so that wasn't fun at all. But
well, you can drink your whiskey and go to bed.
Going to. I will say the one thing, people, don't expect a whole lot of preseason analysis from us. Preseason games don't matter when it comes to Dynasty unless someone tears or breaks something. So if you were expecting that, I'm sorry, but in my mind, it's just
I think
what we're talking about.
I think, as we get, I think there's some value when we get closer to the season, and there's some starters that have come out. So like Alfred Morris is a perfect example 2 years ago of beginning a training camp was so far down the list it wasn't even funny, but by the end he was the starter. So look, the point is we'll cover that as it gets closer to the actual season, I think is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, correct.
All right, well that concludes this episode. It was fairly lengthy, so I hope you all stuck around to the end. You can see our complete rankings at dynastyfantasyfootballcentral.com, or check us out on Twitter at @dynasty_FFC, and until next time.